Pay attention to the woman walking south on Belmont Avenue in Philadelphia at 11:47 p.m. on September the 22nd. Her name is Sienna Whitfield. She's 28 years old, wearing black jeans, a denim jacket, and carrying a canvas tote bag over her shoulder. She's just finished her bartending shift at the Copper Lion, a gastropub in Northern Liberties. Inside that bag are her tips, $187 in cash, her phone, her keys, and a half-eaten turkey sandwich she'd made before her shift. She planned to walk the 9 blocks home to her apartment on Girard Avenue, take a hot shower, and be asleep by 1 a.m. Sienna crosses the intersection, heading south. She's alone on the street. Her hands are in her jacket pockets. She appears relaxed, unhurried. The timestamp reads 11:50 p.m. A bodega security camera captures her walking past at 11:52 p.m. An ATM camera shows her crossing Girard Avenue at 11:54 p.m. That is the last time Sienna Whitfield is seen on any surveillance system. Within 4 hours, her roommate would call police in a panic. Within 12 hours, investigators would discover her phone had been powered off at 11:56 p.m., just 2 blocks from her apartment. And within 9 days, they would learn that the maintenance worker who'd been repairing apartments in her building was not who he claimed to be. This was not a random crime. It was a calculated abduction carried out by someone who'd been watching her nightly routine for weeks. Sienna Whitfield had moved to Philadelphia 18 months earlier, relocating from Richmond, Virginia for a job opportunity that had fallen through. She'd stayed anyway, finding work at the Copper Lion and building a life in the city. She was saving money to enroll in culinary school. Her dream was to open her own restaurant someday. She lived in a 3-bedroom apartment on Girard Avenue with 2 roommates, Maya Stein, a graphic designer, and Keisha Washington, a paralegal. The apartment was in a mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and residential units above. The neighborhood was urban, densely populated, well-lit. Sienna worked the evening shift at the Copper Lion, 5 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday. Her walk home was consistent, south on Belmont, east on Girard, 9 blocks total, usually completed in under 15 minutes. On September 22nd, Sienna clocked out at 11:32 p.m. Security footage from the Copper Lion shows her leaving through the back exit at 11:44 p.m. She began her walk home. She never arrived. Maya Stein expected Sienna home by midnight. When she hadn't appeared by 12:30 a.m., Maya texted her. No response. She called. The phone rang once and went to voicemail. By 1 a.m., Maya was concerned. She woke Keisha. They both tried calling Sienna. Voicemail. Maya called the Copper Lion. The night manager confirmed Sienna had left on schedule, seemed fine, mentioned walking home as usual. At 2 a.m., Maya called 911. Philadelphia police initially treated it as a missing adult, woman out of contact for a few hours, probably met up with friends or stayed somewhere else for the night. Maya insisted that wasn't possible. Sienna always came home. She always texted if plans changed. At 3:30 a.m., officers arrived at the apartment and took a report. Detective Omar Williams was assigned to the case at 8 a.m. on September 23rd. He was an 11-year veteran of the Philadelphia Police Department, currently assigned to the Special Victims Unit. He interviewed Maya and Keisha, reviewed the timeline, and requested surveillance footage from Sienna's route. The Copper Lion provided footage showing Sienna's departure at 11:44 p.m. Traffic cameras tracked her walking south on Belmont Avenue. She appeared on camera at 11:49 p.m., 11:52 p.m., and 11:54 p.m. After 11:54 p.m., she vanished. Williams pulled Sienna's phone records. The last activity was at 11:56 p.m. The phone had either been powered off or destroyed. Cell tower data placed the phone's last ping near the intersection of Girard and 4th Street, 1 block from Sienna's apartment. Williams canvassed the area between the last camera sighting and Sienna's building. The stretch was residential, lined with row houses and small apartment buildings. Few businesses, minimal camera coverage. He interviewed residents. Most had been asleep. No one reported hearing anything unusual. A few residents mentioned they'd seen a white work van parked on Girard around 11:30 p.m., but couldn't provide details. Williams requested footage from every camera within a 3-block radius. On September 24th, Williams's team made a discovery. A residential doorbell camera on 4th Street, half a block from Sienna's apartment, captured something at 11:55 p.m. A white Ford Transit van with no visible markings was parked on the street. The camera angle didn't capture the license plate, but it showed the van's rear doors opening at 11:56 p.m. A figure, unclear in the low light, appeared to be loading something into the van. The doors closed. The van pulled away. Williams zoomed in on the footage. The figure was a man, tall, wearing dark coveralls or work clothes. The object being loaded was large, wrapped in what appeared to be a tarp or blanket. The van drove east on Girard and disappeared from view. Williams put out an alert for white Ford Transit vans in the Philadelphia area. The investigation expanded. Williams's team pulled surveillance from traffic cameras along potential routes the van could have taken. They tracked it heading east on Girard, then south on I-95. The van exited the highway at Oregon Avenue at 12:14 a.m. Traffic cameras lost it in the industrial area south of the city. Williams interviewed Sienna's employer, co-workers, friends, and family. Everyone described her the same way: hardworking, responsible, focused on her goals. No romantic relationships, no conflicts, no risky behavior. Her social media showed a normal life: photos of food she'd cooked, shifts at the bar, outings with roommates. The last post was September 21st, the day before her disappearance. A photo of a dessert she'd made with the caption, "Getting closer to pastry chef level." Williams pulled her bank records. No unusual activity. Her last transaction was at 6:30 p.m. on September 22nd, a $4.50 purchase at a convenience store near work. The case was at a standstill. They had footage of a van. They had a general description of a suspect, but no identification, no license plate, no clear leads. Williams returned to Sienna's apartment building. The building on Girard Avenue was a 4-story structure with 12 residential units and 2 ground-floor retail spaces. Building management maintained minimal security, a locked front entrance requiring a key fob, but no cameras in common areas. Williams interviewed the building manager, who mentioned that maintenance work had been ongoing for the past month. Several units were being renovated: plumbing updates, electrical work, cosmetic improvements. The work was being done by a contractor hired by the building's owner. The manager provided the contractor's business name and contact information. Williams called the number. It went to a disconnected line. He requested the contractor's paperwork from building management. The application listed a business name, Premier Property Solutions, and a contractor license number. Williams ran both. The business name was registered to a shell company with no physical address. The contractor license number didn't exist. The contractor was a fraud. Williams requested the name of the individual who'd done the work. Building management provided a name: Malik Ndiaye, a 37-year-old Senegalese immigrant who'd presented himself as the company's site supervisor. Williams ran the name. No criminal record, no driver's license on file in Pennsylvania. The name appeared on a work visa application from 2019, but the visa had expired in 2021. Williams requested security footage from nearby businesses showing the building's entrance during the renovation period. On September 26th, Williams's team found him. Footage from a corner bodega showed Malik Ndiaye entering and exiting Sienna's building multiple times over the past 3 weeks. He was tall, approximately 6 feet 3 inches, with a lean build. He wore work coveralls and carried a toolbox. On September 22nd, cameras captured him entering the building at 4:30 p.m., 90 minutes before Sienna's shift ended. He exited at 11:42 p.m., 2 minutes before Sienna left the Copper Lion. Williams pulled additional footage from the days leading up to Sienna's disappearance. September 15th, 7 p.m. Ndiaye stood outside the building, watching the street. At 11:52 p.m., Sienna walked past him on her way home. He watched her enter the building. September 18th, 11:45 p.m. Ndiaye stood in a doorway across the street. Sienna walked past at 11:51 p.m. He followed her at a distance until she entered the building. September 20th, 11:40 p.m. Ndiaye sat in a white van parked on Girard. Sienna walked past at 11:49 p.m. He'd been stalking her. Williams obtained a warrant for Malik Ndiaye's known addresses. Ndiaye's work visa listed an address in South Philadelphia, a boarding house on Wharton Street. Williams and his team arrived at 6 a.m. on September 27th. The landlord confirmed Ndiaye had rented a room for 2 years but had vacated on September 23rd, the day after Sienna's disappearance. He'd paid through the end of the month and left no forwarding address. The room had been cleared out. Officers searched it anyway. They found nothing. No personal items. No evidence. Williams expanded the search. He contacted Immigration and Customs Enforcement, requesting any known addresses or employment records for Malik Ndiaye. ICE provided 2 additional addresses, a previous residence in Camden, New Jersey, and a registered mailing address for a storage facility in Northeast Philadelphia. Williams obtained a warrant for the storage facility. The storage facility was a sprawling complex of units on Castor Avenue. The unit registered to Malik Ndiaye was a 10 by 20 space on the ground floor. Williams and his team arrived at 2 p.m. on September 27th. The lock was cut. The door rolled open. Inside, they found construction materials, tools, paint cans, and equipment consistent with renovation work. But in the back corner, covered with a tarp, they found something else. A large plastic storage container. Inside were women's personal belongings, wallets, identification cards, jewelry, phones, 12 different women, 12 driver's licenses, 12 faces. Sienna Whitfield's phone was among them. A statewide alert was issued for Malik Ndiaye. His photo was distributed to every law enforcement agency in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. Airports, bus stations, and border crossings were notified. Williams' team worked frantically to identify the other victims. The IDs belonged to women aged 23 to 34, all from the Philadelphia area. 6 had been reported missing within the past 2 years. The other 5 had never been reported. Williams would later learn they were estranged from family or had been living transient lifestyles. None of the women had been found. Williams now understood the scope of the case. Malik Ndiaye was a serial predator. The search for Sienna Whitfield became a race against time. On September 28th, Williams received a tip from a tow truck driver. A white Ford Transit van had been abandoned in a shopping center parking lot in Chester, Pennsylvania, 15 miles south of Philadelphia. The van was registered under a fake name. Forensic teams processed it immediately. They found traces of blood in the cargo area. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to at least 4 different individuals. They found fibers, hair samples, and fingerprints. The van had been wiped down, but Ndiaye had missed spots. On September 29th, ICE provided additional information. Ndiaye had entered the United States on a work visa in 2019, sponsored by a construction company that had since gone out of business. He'd overstayed his visa and had been living and working illegally for 3 years. Immigration records showed he'd previously lived in New York and Baltimore before settling in Philadelphia. Williams contacted police departments in both cities. Both had unsolved missing persons cases matching Ndiaye's pattern: young women who disappeared while walking home at night. Williams requested forensic teams search additional locations. On October 1st, 9 days after Sienna's disappearance, a jogger in Wissahickon Valley Park reported finding a suspicious structure in a wooded area near the creek. Park rangers investigated. They found a camouflaged shelter, a tarp stretched between trees, concealing a dugout space beneath the ground. Inside the dugout was a makeshift cell, plywood walls, a locked door, a single cot, bottled water, and packaged food. And inside the cell, bound and semi-conscious, was Sienna Whitfield. She was alive, severely dehydrated, malnourished, restrained, but alive. Paramedics transported her to Temple University Hospital. She was treated for dehydration, malnutrition, and shock. Toxicology reports revealed sedatives in her system, benzodiazepines, and ketamine. Sienna could barely speak initially. When she did, her account was fragmented. She remembered walking home. She remembered hearing footsteps behind her. She remembered a hand over her mouth, a chemical smell, and then nothing. She'd woken in darkness, bound and blindfolded, with no sense of where she was or how much time had passed. Ndiaye had visited the dugout twice, bringing food and water. He'd spoken to her in calm tones, telling her she was safe, telling her he was protecting her from the dangers of the city. Sienna Whitfield had been held captive for 9 days. The discovery of the dugout provided critical evidence. Forensic teams found Ndiaye's fingerprints, DNA, and personal items inside the shelter. They found maps showing other wooded areas in Philadelphia and surrounding counties. Williams coordinated with state police to search those locations. On October 3rd, Malik Ndiaye was apprehended at a bus station in Wilmington, Delaware. He was attempting to board a bus to Florida using a fake ID. He did not resist arrest. He requested an attorney. The interrogation lasted 12 hours. Ndiaye, represented by a public defender, said very little initially. Investigators presented the evidence, the surveillance footage, the storage unit, the van, Sienna's testimony, the dugout in Wissahickon Valley Park. They presented his internet search history, pulled from a laptop found in the storage unit, searches for how to build underground shelter, sedatives that don't show up on tests, women's walking schedules Philadelphia, and how to avoid security cameras. Ndiaye finally spoke. He claimed he'd been trying to help the women. He said the city was dangerous, that women walking alone at night were vulnerable. He said he'd been protecting them. The investigators ended the interrogation. The claim was delusional, contradicted by every piece of evidence. Further searches of wooded areas in the region uncovered 2 additional dugouts, both similar in construction to the one in Wissahickon Valley Park. Both showed evidence of recent use. Human remains were found at one site, partially buried, badly decomposed. DNA testing eventually identified the victim as one of the women whose belongings had been found in Ndiaye's storage unit. Extensive searches continued for months. 4 additional victims remain missing. Malik Ndiaye was charged with kidnapping, murder, aggravated assault, unlawful restraint, and administering controlled substances without consent. The trial began on May 8th of the following year. Sienna testified. She described Ndiaye's surveillance, the abduction outside her apartment, waking in the underground cell, the terror of captivity. Her voice was steady, but the trauma was evident. Forensic experts testified about the evidence found in the van, the storage unit, and the dugouts. Digital forensic specialists presented Ndiaye's search histories, the photographs on his devices, the meticulous planning evident in his activities. Ndiaye's defense team argued diminished capacity and delusional disorder. They presented evidence of his difficult upbringing in Senegal, poverty, civil conflict, displacement. A psychologist testified that Ndiaye exhibited symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia and savior complex. The prosecution acknowledged Ndiaye's traumatic background. Lead prosecutor Janet Kowalski was direct in her closing argument. Trauma may explain behavior, but it does not justify it. Sienna Whitfield had done nothing to Malik Ndiaye. Neither had the other victims. They had simply existed in his proximity, and he had decided they needed to be saved by force. The jury deliberated for 7 hours, guilty on all counts. Malik Ndiaye was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 180 years on additional charges. Sienna Whitfield spent 4 months in intensive therapy following her rescue. She could not return to her apartment on Girard Avenue. Too many memories, too much fear. She moved in with her parents in Richmond. She did not return to the Copper Lion. For nearly a year, she barely left her parents' home. Slowly, with therapy and family support, Sienna began to rebuild. She enrolled in culinary classes at a community college in Richmond. She started cooking again, something that had once brought her joy and now became part of her healing. 3 years after her abduction, Sienna opened a small cafe in Richmond called Survived. Half the proceeds go to a nonprofit supporting survivors of abduction and assault. She speaks publicly now about her experience, advocating for improved security measures in residential buildings and better lighting in urban neighborhoods. She lobbied successfully for Pennsylvania House Bill 1847, which requires all multi-unit residential buildings to install and maintain security cameras in common areas and provides funding for municipalities to expand street camera networks. The law is known as Sienna's Law. The apartment building on Girard Avenue implemented comprehensive security upgrades. Cameras now cover all entrances, exits, and common areas. Background checks are mandatory for all contractors. Sienna never returned to Philadelphia. She drives when she needs to travel and never walks alone at night. Her roommate, Maya Stein, keeps a photograph on her refrigerator. It's from Sienna's cafe opening. Sienna standing in front of the counter, smiling, surrounded by friends and family. Maya looks at that photograph and remembers how close she came to losing her friend. She remembers that Sienna survived. Sienna Whitfield walked home from work planning an ordinary night. She walked into a nightmare instead. But she walked out. That's what matters most.